The 99th Aero Squadron was a Air Service, United States Army unit that fought on the Western Front during World War I. The squadron was assigned as a Corps Observation Squadron, performing short-range tactical reconnaissance over the 5th Corps, United States 1st Army sector of the Western Front in France, providing battlefield intelligence. After the 1918 Armistice with Germany, the squadron returned to the United States in June 1919 and became part of the permanent United States Army Air Service in 1921, being redesignated as the 99 Squadron. The current United States Air Force unit, which holds its lineage and history as the 99th Reconnaissance Squadron, assigned to the 9th Operations Group, Beale Air Force Base, California. History. Origins. The 99th Aero Squadron was organized on the 21st of August 1917 at Kelly Field, Texas. On the 13th of October 1917 the squadron was ordered to the Aviation Concentration Center, Mineola, Long Island, New York, for overseas duty. The squadron proceeded by train from San Antonio to New York City, and arrived without incident. The 99th embarked for duty in France at Hoboken, New Jersey on the White Star Line RMS Cedric on the 14th of November. The line crossed the Atlantic via Halifax, Nova Scotia without incident, and arrived in Liverpool, England, on the 30th of November. From Liverpool, the squadron took a train south to Winchester, where it remained until the 7th of December at a rest camp. On the 8th of December, the squadron crossed the English Channel, arriving in Le Havre, France. After 2 days awaiting transportation, the squadron boarded a troop train and arrived at American Expeditionary Forces 2D Aviation Instruction Center at Tours Aerodrome, France. The 99th was the first complete American Aero Squadron to arrive at the 2D AIC. Men were assigned to special duty in various training departments. The instruction concentrated on becoming familiar to the British and French aircraft and various engines with which they were expedited to have experience with at the front. The squadron, now composed of 3 officers and 136 enlisted men, left Tours on the 9th of March and arrived on the 11th of March at Housimont Aerodrome, in the Zone of Advance, or the Western Front. The squadron was designated as a Corps Observation Squadron, and assigned to the Headquarters, Chief of Air Service, AIA. Hangars were erected at the field in preparation for reception of airplanes and pilots. On the 23rd of March 18 pilots were assigned to the squadron and an equal number of aircraft, British Sopwith 1.5 Strata, commonly called pups. At Housimont, the squadron organization grew to include an armament, engineering, radio, photographic, and other departments. With the arrival of observers, the squadron was ready to enter combat as a completely equipped American observation squadron. Combat in France. The initial operations of the squadron began on the 1st of April with missions being flown in conjunction with the 3D Artillery Observation School at Mailly, France as part of the 1st Army Observation Group. This work continued daily until the 31st of May, when orders were received to move to Amanti Aerodrome. On the 20th of June, the first casualty of a flying officer occurred while testing an aircraft at the French aerodrome at Apis. A 99th pilot was killed in a crash. The first flight across the lines into enemy territory occurred on the 22nd of June 1918 when Lieutenants Alexander, Carl, and Nutt, along with 3 observers, flew over the enemy lines on a reconnaissance mission over the Toul-Moselle sector. All of the aircraft returned with holes in the wings, attesting to the accuracy of enemy anti-aircraft artillery. Missions in the Toul sector were of brief duration, and on the 1st of July, the squadron was ordered to Lucoil-les-Bains Aerodrome and transferred to the 5th Corps Observation Group. Being the first American Aero Squadron to arrive at La Haye, the squadron was given an unusually cordial reception. There, the squadron received the latest in French observation planes, the Samson II-A2, as the Sopwiths were found to be unsatisfactory for reconnaissance over enemy territory. Missions began immediately with the 5th Corps Infantry Aviation School at La Haye. A detachment of flying officers were dispatched to Corsier Aerodrome, Vosges, France for flights over the lines with the French 285th SPAD Squadron. The mission of the squadron at Corsier was to cooperate with the French Air Force and enable the pilots and observers to learn the SDI sector. In order to learn the sector, the American observers flew with French pilots, and French observers flew with American pilots. In these flights, frequent combat was encountered with German aircraft. On the 24th of July, the 285th Squadron was ordered to move, and the 99th S-3D flight, consisting of 7 Salmsons, 7 pilots, 7 observers and the maintenance crews, moved from Luxor-les-Bains to the French Dogneville Aerodrome. There, the flight was assigned to the 33rd French Corps, was ordered to carry on the work over the sector formerly covered by the 285th Squadron. The 99th flew reconnaissance missions and directed artillery fire in support of U.S. Army 5th Division's offensive against German soldiers entrenched at Frappel. From Dogneville, the 3rd Flight flew photographic missions more than 40 kilometers behind enemy lines. No other unit in this sector had ever photographed deeper than 10 kilometers before. When the 5th Division began its attack on the 17th of August 1918, the 3rd kept 2 aircraft airborne throughout the day. One observed enemy positions and directed artillery fire. The other maintained contact with Allied infantry and advised headquarters of the line of advance. Since the ground troops never displayed panels to show the position, pilots often had to fly low enough to distinguish between friendly and enemy uniforms. This exposed the aircraft and crew to heavy machine gun and rifle fire. Contact crews often aided the ground offensive by attacking machine gun sites and firing at enemy troops. After the successful offensive, 3D flight crews photographed the new front lines. Observers developed an effective means of communicating their information to the ground commanders. They first radioed the data to the ground station. Pilots then flew over the unit command post and observers dropped a written message confirming the radio call. They next flew over Corps headquarters and dropped another note verifying the radio communication. Despite what seemed to be an efficient method, aviators and artillery troops often had difficulty communicating and seldom made an effective team. The 99th also aided the 5th Corps during the Saint-Mihiel offensive from 12th through the 16th of September. The squadron had moved to Sully Aerodrome on the 7th of September. German soldiers were well entrenched and prepared for a prolonged defense of the positions. Before the attack, crews flew photographic reconnaissance missions taking oblique shots of enemy positions. As the ground offensive began on the 12th of September, a heavy mist, low-hanging clouds and intermittent rain severely hampered aerial observation. Nevertheless, 99th pilots flew visual observation and artillery adjustment missions throughout the day. Severe weather also affected aerial operations on the 13th of September, but skies cleared the following day. So the 99th flew infantry contact, artillery adjustment, photographic and visual reconnaissance missions, flying 8 kilometers deep behind enemy lines. Corps produced photographs that clearly defined enemy positions. Some of Germany's best aviators operated in this area, but Allied Corps successfully defended themselves and completed the mission. On the 15th of September, foul weather returned and limited flights to visual operations and artillery adjustments. On the 20th of September, the 99th Aero Squadron moved to Foucault Aerodrome and prepared to help the 5th Corps in the Meuse-Argonne offensive. Again, the German soldiers opposed the attack from barbed wire-protected trenches. Also, additional enemy pursuit, observation and bombardment forces meant most of the Kaiser's best aviation units defended the area. When the ground attack began on the 26th of September, inclement weather restricted flight operations. Rain, haze and fog usually obscured the ground from then until the 11th of November. Since cloud cover severely limited photographic reconnaissance, headquarters confined missions to a few well-defined and extremely important areas. Aircraft and pilots often stood ready to fly, waiting in vain for any break in the clouds. When weather permitted, Corps took oblique photographs along enemy lines. If the need for information was great, pilots flew even in heavy cloud cover, hoping for a chance break to take that important picture. Pursuit planes protected observation aircraft during these missions. The large number of enemy pursuit aircraft operating in the area made an attack during photographic flights almost a certainty. The pursuit protectors often flew about 500 meters above the observation aircraft. This gave them an advantage against enemy attackers. Photographic aircraft also flew during large bombing and pursuit operations to take advantage of the amassed firepower. The 4 black crosses on the 9th Reconnaissance Wing's emblem today represent 1st and 99th Squadron's participation at St. Mihiel, Argonne, Meuse, Champagne-Marne and Aisne-Marne. Demobilization with the Armistice with Germany reached on the 11th of November 1918. Combat operations ended. After nearly 3 months of service on the front, the 99th Aero Squadron lost 3 members killed in action, and another 5 members killed from wounds or other causes. 6 other members were wounded. 1 aircraft of Samson did not return from a mission on the 29th of September. Its pilot and observer were not accounted for and were carried as missing in action. Both members were later determined to be killed and the bodies were recovered. With the end of combat, the 99th was transferred to Air Service Headquarters (AEF) at Chaumont-sur-Aire Aerodrome. With the sudden end of the war, the process of returning the AEF to the United States took several months. Squadron pilots began flying courier and liaison flights within the American sector, while flights of the squadron were dispatched to several airfields to support the French Air Force in reconstruction and other necessary tasks. On the 19th of February 1919, orders were received for the squadron to report to the 1st Air Depot, Columbia-les-Belles Aerodrome, to turn in all of its supplies and equipment, and was relieved from duty with the AEF. The squadron's Samson aircraft were delivered to the Air Service American Air Service Acceptance Park No. 1 at Orly Aerodrome to be returned to the French. Practically all of the pilots and observers were detached from the squadron. Personnel at Columbia were subsequently assigned to the Commanding General Services of Supply and ordered to report to a staging camp at Sadi, Iraq. Their personnel awaited scheduling to report to one of the base ports in France for transport to the United States and subsequent demobilization. In early May, the 99th was moved to the base port at Bordeaux, and the squadron arrived in New York about the 23rd and began the process of demobilization at Hazelhurst Field on Long Island. By the middle of June, the 99th Aero Squadron was fully demobilized. Its men returned to civilian life. Redesignated 99th Squadron on the 14th of March 1921, assignment stations operations, combat sectors and campaigns. Notable personnel: DSC, Distinguished Service Cross, SSC, Silver Star Citation, Kia, Killed in Action.